Hi class. I wanted to mention something going all the way back to week 2 when we talked about self-esteem. There was an article that you had to read and respond to, and actually the responses varied widely among all the students in the class regarding self-esteem. The article was titled Exploding the Self-Esteem Myth, and one of the authors was Dr. Roy Baumeister. And basically I had a little blurb in there that stated people with high self-esteem are significantly happier than others. Well, I'm actually reading this one book called Nurture Shock. Okay, and the authors are Pope Bronson and Ashley Merriman. This has been on, it's actually been on a few talk shows, it's been on NPR radio. A lot of people are starting to talk about this book, and basically it is it's a new thinking about children and how they develop, and of what a lot of research has stated in the past and what people are thinking now. So I just started this book, and the first chapter is called The Inverse Power of Praise. And there are these two researchers that are well renowned in child development, and basically it's a woman by the name of Carol Dweck, and then her protege in graduate school was Dr. Lisa Blackwell. Well, they published a report in the academic journal Child Development, and basically their findings were pretty well known, and basically it was that praise, self-esteem, and performance rise and fall together. So on page 18 and 19 of this book, if you do decide to read it, there's some information on self-esteem that I thought was really interesting and that I wanted to share with you. So I'm just going to read this passage here. From 1970 to 2000, there were over 15,000 scholarly articles written on self-esteem and its relationship to basically everything, from sex to career advancement. But the results were often contradictory or inconclusive. So in 2003, the Association for Psychological Science asked Dr. Roy Baumeister, now this is the individual that wrote that article back in week 2 in our assignment, or I should say co-authored that article, because there were other individuals that wrote that, who is a leading proponent of self-esteem, to review all of that literature. His team concluded that self-esteem research was polluted with flawed science. Most of those 15,000 studies asked people to rate their self-esteem and then asked them to rate their own intelligence, career success, relationship skills, and a few other variables. These self-reports were extremely unreliable, since people with high self-esteem have an inflated perception of their abilities. Only 200 of the studies employed a scientifically sound way to measure self-esteem and its outcomes. After reviewing those 200 studies, so again we went from 15,000 studies and basically narrowed it down to 200 studies that actually had a sound way of evaluating self-esteem. And out of these 200 studies, Baumeister concluded that having high self-esteem didn't improve grades or career achievement. It didn't even reduce alcohol usage, and it especially did not lower violence of any sort. Basically, highly aggressive, violent people happen to think very highly of themselves, debunking the theory that people are aggressive to make up for low self-esteem. At the time, Baumeister was quoted as saying that his findings were the biggest disappointment of my career. Now he's on Dweck's side, who is Dr. Carol Dweck, of the argument, and his work is going in a similar direction. He recently published an article showing that for college students on the verge of failing in class, esteem-building praise causes their grades to sink further. Baumeister has come to believe that continued appeal of self-esteem, now get this is where it's very important, is largely tied to parents' pride in their children's achievements. It's so strong that when they praise their kids, it's not that far from praising themselves. So basically, what this states is the effects of praise, now we're looking at praise here on your self-esteem, can vary significantly depending on the praise given. To be effective, researchers have found praise needs to be specific. So the sincerity of praise is also very crucial. The biggest mistake parents or teachers, coaches, however you want to see yourself in a manager role, The biggest mistake, I'm going to use the term parents because this is what is in the book, make is assuming students aren't sophisticated enough to see and feel our true intentions. Just as we can sniff out the true meaning of a compliment, a backhanded compliment, or an apology, children too can scrutinize praise for hidden agendas. Only young children under the age of 7 take praise at face value. Older children are just as suspicious of adults. So basically someone compliments you, oh, that paper was just great, and you knew very well it wasn't. Well, what's going to happen is, you're not really going to take any effort to work harder in doing anything for that paper because, you just sort of take praise at face value there. So anyway, I thought this research was really interesting enough that I wanted to share with you. Again, I just finished chapter 1 of this book, and I am really enjoying it. As you know, I am a parent to a 4.5-year-old boy and a 2.5-year-old girl, so this is really interesting stuff to me. So with that being said, enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you online.